Yep.
Or do you want to wait a little longer? Okay, perfect.
All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much, Annik, for doing your wonderful presentation today for us. So we will be recording the presentation. If you do not wish to be part of the recording, feel free to turn your camera off. We do ask that during the presentation you keep yourself muted, but during the question period, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself, ask any questions. If you do not feel comfortable doing so, feel free to throw it in the chat and I can relay it to Annik. And take her away.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, so we've got a beginner, we've got a couple of intermediate levels, some people who are already on social. That's great. We'll touch on kind of all of the levels as much as we can. This presentation is a little less technical and a little more about your content, about where you're investing your energy in your marketing strategy and on social media, because there's so many platforms for us to be on. And then finally, also, we're going to talk a little bit about engagement strategy, ways that you can start building relationships, do a little bit more networking online. So that's pretty much the gist of the presentation today. It's less platform specific, but if you have questions about platforms, we can talk about that in the Q&A section at the end. So this is going to be more messaging based, more about consistency and more about your engagement strategy. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to have you all here. This is going to be great for those who are at that intermediate level and are already kind of dipping their toes into social media, which is great. And then for those beginners, we can touch on a couple of things. Feel free to ask your questions throughout. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and then I'll kind of acknowledge it, and then we can chat a little bit more if I need you to elaborate on that question. But I'm happy to make this a conversation. We're a smaller group, so I love chit-chatting a little bit as we go, and then there will be also time for questions at the end too. So just feel free to put questions in the chat box whenever they come up for you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So we're going to head over to my presentation. Let me open this up. And present. Great. Okay, cool. So the gist of the presentation today is all about building an aligned social strategy. So the goal here is that you walk away from this presentation knowing what kind of a strategy you want to build. And that strategy will include the kind of messaging you want to use, what platforms you want to be on, where you want to invest your energy in your marketing strategy that's actually going to work for you and bring you results. And then also a little bit of a networking strategy in there as well. So all really important parts of your social media strategy. And that's what we're going to touch on today. The aligned bit is the fact that we're going to make it all work for you, because social media can be basically a recipe for burnout, right? Like, we put so much effort and time into our marketing strategies, and it can take time to build. So it's important from the get-go that you build a social media strategy that is not only going to be successful for your business, but is also going to make you feel inspired and be a strategy that you're excited to try and put into play, and that will not burn you out, right? So that's the goal here. I'm Annik Welsh. That is who I am. And I launched my business, Annik Welsh Social, back in January 2020. I am a social media manager. I am also a social media and confidence coach. So there's kind of the two halves of my business that I work in. I have over 5 years of experience in social media and marketing. And I've worked with tons of different types of entrepreneurs. I've worked with mortgage agents, retail, restaurants, health coaches, web designers, all sorts of different types of entrepreneurs. So what we're going to touch on today is impactful messaging. So we'll touch on that in a second. Impactful messaging, we're going to talk about getting consistent, and we're going to talk about soulful lead generation. So generating those leads in a way that feels really good, and that's part of the networking strategy that I was talking about earlier on. So I'm all about soulful social media, and I want to tell you guys a little bit about what that means before we dive in. Essentially, soulful social media is, the goal here is to feel good about your social media strategy. Social media can take up a lot of time, a lot of energy. And so I want you to build a strategy that feels really good to you. The goal here is to leave space for fun in your business, to leave your mark. So to make an impact, to believe in what you're creating and putting out online, and then also finding freedom in your day-to-day, right? So finding that time freedom that we so often give up when we're working in our businesses. That's what a soulful social strategy is all about. And that's what I want you all to be able to walk away with today. I want you to be able to build one for yourselves. So let's start here. We're going to start with impactful messaging because at the base of our social strategy is content, right? We want to be able to create messaging that is going to speak to our ideal client and also make an impact, right? Say what we really want to say. So it serves a couple of purposes. And for messaging to be totally impactful, it has to be true to your ideal client. This is the thing that we always remember. We're always trying to speak directly to our ideal client, right? That's kind of, we all kind of have an idea of that. Everything we put out, we want to attract our customer base. But the second rule we often forget about when it comes to impactful messaging is that your messaging has to be true to you. So you need to believe in your messaging, right? You need to feel really good about what you're putting out, feel inspired by your messaging. If you're able to be inspired by it, it's going to inspire your ideal client. And then finally, my third rule for creating impactful messaging is that it is value-based. So what that means is that any type of content you put out has to have value. So there has to be a reason for somebody to, click that follow button. There has to be a reason for someone to want to continue to consume your content. And the way we do that is you can remember these three things. For your content to be value-based, it has to be either entertaining, inspiring, or educational. So these are kind of the three core purposes of content. And content marketing, this is what makes content marketing different than other types of advertising, is that it is value-based. And so we are giving a takeaway for the ideal client, right? And your content can be a combination of any of these two. It could be entertaining and inspiring. It could be educational and entertaining. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be a combination of all three, of two of these, but this is a great way that when you write a piece of content to ask yourself, okay, what kind of value am I giving in this piece of content and how is it serving my ideal client? We're going to talk about other different types of messaging. So we're going to get into promotional messaging as well, just a little bit. And that stuff is important, but there are ways of infusing value into our promotional content as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So these are my three rules for impactful messaging. If you want to put out a message that is impactful, it has to be true to your ideal client, true to you, and it has to be value-based. Okay. So the first step of kind of figuring out our messaging, right, has to be true to our ideal client. So we need to figure out who that ideal client is, right? And this is an exercise I encourage everyone to do. Even if you've done it before, if you did it a couple months ago, it might have shifted, right? Figuring out who your ideal client, your target might have shifted since the last time you did this exercise. So I really recommend you sit down and do this and write it out. So if you struggle with figuring out who you are speaking to and who your ideal client is, your target market, whatever you want to call it, I want you to think about a past client that you absolutely loved working with. So that is a great way to figure out maybe who your ideal client is, right? And what qualities they may possess. If no one comes to mind for you, you can also think about who you would want to work with. What is that ideal person that you would love to sell to, you would love to work with? Who would bring out your strengths? Who would appreciate the value of your business? Right? Who would allow you to serve them to the best of your ability? Who would really appreciate your products? Who might be a great, word of mouth salesman that you don't even know, right? Think about all of these things when it comes to your ideal client, and that might help you to figure out who they are. In addition to these couple of questions that I have for you. So to hone in on your ideal client, I want you to think about who needs you, right? Who needs your product? Who needs your service? Who is in need of that item, object, that service, whatever it is you're selling? Who are they in their, or where are they in their lives? So what stage of life are they in? Are they in their 30s? Are they 20 somethings? Are they retiring? Like what is their age bracket? Where are they in their lives? What are their pastimes? So what are some things that they might relate to? What are some activities, hobbies that they enjoy partaking in? Where do they live? So some of us are geographically limited, although now with the surge of e-commerce, not as much, right? So if you're an e-commerce business, this might not be as applicable to you, but if you do have a brick and mortar shop, then this is something that will apply to you, and you have to think about us online service providers as well. It's pretty flexible, but this does apply to some people still. where are they in their careers? So I don't know, maybe you're a coach helping people transition into retirement. Maybe your ideal client is someone who is in their 50s and they're looking for a career change. Where are they in their careers? So this could be really applicable to you. And finally, what are their values? This is one of the most important ones, because this is that beautiful spot where we align their values with the values of your business, right? And that's going to really help to inform your messaging, because you're touching on impactful messaging right there, right? Is that crossover of what their values are and what your values are. Because if you can speak to their values while also really believing in what you're saying, that is effective, impactful messaging. So what are their values? I have a little ideal client exercise for you here too that you can take away with you and do on your own outside of this presentation. And this might help you get even more specific on that ideal client. And I believe this is being recorded. I'm going to send the slides afterwards too. So if this is something that you want to look at, Kylie, are you guys able to send the slides to the people who are attending the presentation?
Yeah, if you send me the
Sure.
your presentation later, and then that same email I have posted at the top there, the communications@paro.ca. Anyone who wants it, send me an email and I'll send it to you.
Perfect. So I will send this along so you're able to kind of go through it if you can't write fast enough. And the first prompt here, these are journal prompts. The first prompt that I want you to write out is 20 qualities of your ideal client. So what are their qualities? And I want you to write 20 of them. Okay. The second prompt here is I want you to write out 20 qualities that you possess that allows you to attract and serve that client. I love this prompt because it touches on our values, right? What are the values that we have that are going to attract our client that have to do with our businesses, right? I think I saw someone post about eco containers, like that's the perfect example, right? You're valuing environmental sustainability. And so that's something that you're really going to touch on. You're really going to be able to attract a niche of people with that value, right? So what are 20 qualities that you possess that allow you to attract and serve that client? Hits on your values. It also hits on you personally, you know, like let's give yourself a little confidence boost here. What are the things that qualities and skill sets that you have that allow you to attract people to you? Are you super approachable? Like, what are those qualities? So write that out. And then the third one is write 20 things that make you valuable. So this is just a prompt that I absolutely love for confidence. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, I do social media. I'm also a confidence coach. So it takes some confidence to be present on social media, right? We have to overcome a couple of our blocks. Sometimes we're perfectionists and we rewrite posts over and over again. And so then we eventually don't post them, and then our presence isn't as strong as it could be. So this is just a nice little prompt to give us that confidence boost to show up in the way that we need to be able to attract our clients. So, you know, what are 20 things that make you valuable? Or if you're a product-based business, what are 20 things that make your product valuable? I think that could be really a helpful list. Okay. Impactful messaging. So let's talk about the different types of messaging that we can be using in the online space to attract our ideal clients. So the first type of messaging that I love to include in content, and when I refer to content, I'm speaking of written content like captions. I'm also speaking of reels. I'm speaking of videos, like any type, all of those are considered content, right? You could even use this to reference blog posts. You could use this on your website, like all of this type of messaging. It's very flexible. It's all content. So my first example of messaging is pain points. And so when we highlight a pain point, we are highlighting a problem or a struggle that our ideal client is facing. And so these are just some typical ones that I wrote out. So this could be money struggles. Maybe they're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe they're feeling the need to be more sustainable in their day-to-day lives, right? Environmentally sustainable. Maybe they don't have enough time. They're feeling low energy. You know, there's fear preventing them from taking action. Whatever the problem is, you're highlighting it. And when you do that, that is called a pain point. And with these, the examples I just gave you are very, very general. And what I want you to do to make it impactful, to make your ideal client say, you know, get out of my brain, like that's exactly what I was thinking, is that you want to go further with it. So you want to make it relatable by getting super specific. So the way to do that is that I want you to take whatever general pain point you may have come up with for your ideal client, and I want you to go further with it. So ask yourself, how is that pain point affecting my ideal client in their day-to-day lives? So a good example is, you know, if you're feeling overwhelmed with work, what is underlying that overwhelm? Is it, you know, they're struggling to show up at the end of the day with their families and be present? That is more specific, and that is how that overwhelm is affecting them in their day-to-day. So I want you to go further with it, right? And then you're highlighting that, you know, this overwhelm and this struggle with their workday is impacting their family life. Like that's so much stronger than just saying, are you overwhelmed? You know, so that's why we want to go further with it. Another type of messaging that I love, which is the opposite of pain points, is transformation points. And I use these a lot more than pain points just because I like them. They're a bit more positive. That's just who I am. I like to put a positive spin on things. So these are your ideal clients' dreams and desires. What do they want to achieve? How do they want to better their lives? You know, what are the things that they can achieve by using what you are offering, right? The product, the service you are offering. How will that better their lives to get them to that transformation that they want to achieve? And so some typical ones, you know, they want to feel better about themselves. They want to feel more confident. They want to feel like they're making an impact on the environment. I keep using that example because it's such a good one, but there are so many transformation points here that we want to go further with. So again, yeah, sure, everybody wants to have a happier life, but how is that going to affect them in their day-to-day, right? When it comes to sustainability, like if their goal is to live a more environmentally sustainable lifestyle, then how can we go further with that? How will that affect their day-to-day? Will they feel like they're making a difference in the world, right? Will they feel like they're making a difference for the future of their children? Like, how can we get more specific with it so that it is that much more impactful? You know, ask yourself with each of these points, when you do a brainstorm of each of these transformation and pain points, every single one you write down, how can I get more specific with it? Ask yourself, how is the transformation point affecting them in their day-to-day lives? Right? Because when you can touch on that specific point, that's so much more impactful than just generally saying, right, oh, well, if you want to be happier, like I've got the product for you, you know? And that's how you create unique messaging as well, because your messaging is going to be very specific to your business and what you are putting out. I'm sure you've seen that we often see the same type of messaging online, and this is the key to getting to being able to put out more unique messaging, right? Okay, I have a couple of other types of messaging that I love to touch on. So I'm just going to put these out there. Limiting belief messaging. So you highlight a belief that your ideal client has that might be untrue or is no longer serving them. And the example I want to use is, you know, that being environmentally conscious isn't going to make a difference, right? I think that's a great example. I think a lot of people think that way, like, oh, what I do won't make that much of a difference, right? I'm just one person. So how can you shift that belief in a video or a caption, right? How can you talk about that? So use that as your opening statement, right? You know, have you been feeling like you can't make a difference or it's impossible to make a difference just as one person? And then shift that, talk about the ways that they can start making a difference and talk about how that will make an impact. There's ways of shifting and highlighting limiting beliefs that can be really effective. And then the beautiful part about the way we build this messaging is at the end of that, then you can sell your product, right? You can say, I've got these eco-conscious containers that can help you make the first step towards actually creating an impact, right? And that's how we add a little promotional bit at the end. And you can do this with any of these posts. So whether you're highlighting pain points, transformation points, limiting beliefs, something else, as long as you have a great little transition, you can always plug your product or service at the end, right? Industry myths. So you can debunk any industry myths that your ideal client might be facing or might believe. Expertise messaging. So this stuff is really important too. So basically it helps you position yourself in the market. It positions you as an expert in your industry. And this is about, maybe talking about your professional stories. What kind of accreditations do you have? Posting testimonials from clients, talking about, oh, I helped this client work through this thing, or my product helps this customer achieve what they've always wanted to, right? So expertise marketing is really effective in building those like, know, and trust factors, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second. The next type of messaging that I love is lifestyle content. So this is more important if you are a personal brand, creating lifestyle content. So if you're showing up as yourself on social media, right, you're promoting yourself. Often service providers create personal brands if they don't have agencies or anything like that. And so the lifestyle content allows your audience to get to know you. So it's essentially content that showcases your behind the scenes, it showcases your hobbies, what you like to do, and in turn then reflects your values, right? Reflects the values of your business. And that's why it can be so effective. People love people, and that's why lifestyle content is important, because it allows us to showcase who we are, right? It allows you to show that there's a person behind the product, right? And so I love lifestyle content. I think it's super important. A lot of people don't like posting it because they feel uncomfortable posting little tidbits. It doesn't have to be your whole feed. It can just be little things here and there. If you're doing an Instagram story, Facebook story, something like that, it can just be like your daily walk or something, if you are highlighting nature. Again, I'm going to use the environmental company that came up. Even if it's product based, right? If you're selling a product, you still value the environment. You can showcase your day-to-day hikes or walks or things like that, right? That ties in really nicely to that brand. So there are ways of infusing lifestyle content that can be effective and not completely overwhelming, right? The goal of all of this type of messaging, expertise, lifestyle, the pain points, the transformation points, the goal here is to build the like, know, and trust factor. And what that is essentially, when you're on someone's page, there are certain types of content that help you like them, that help you get to know them, and then that help you trust them. So eventually you might consider purchasing from them, right? And so whenever we're building content, we want to keep that in mind. That's why we have so many different types of content and messaging, because it helps us build that like, know, and trust factor. And the best way I always describe this is, let's say you live in a small town, right? And there's 2 hardware stores and you need to go to the hardware store. You know the owner of one of the hardware stores. Which hardware store are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one where you know the owner, right? Content helps your customer get to know you. And so once they get to know you, it's the same with networking, right? Whenever somebody knows you, they are more likely to work with you. And so this content helps build those factors. Okay, I have a little impactful messaging exercise for you all today. So there's 4 more prompts here for you to do. And again, this will be sent to you, so you don't have to speed write it down, but this exercise helps you when you're feeling kind of blocked. So if you're not sure what to put out, if you're just looking at your social media feed, like, I don't know what the heck to talk about today, I don't know what to put out, do this exercise, sit down and take 10 minutes to write this out. The first prompt is, what is on my heart to share today? The second prompt is, how does this connect to the transformation of my current offer? And so this is why I love this exercise, because the first prompt really leads you to feel inspired by what you're putting out, right? It reflects you, it's true to you, like we talked about with impactful messaging. The second prompt is, how can we tie that in with your service or your product, which I think is key, right? Because then we're able to promote and sell. The third prompt, what do my ideal clients need to hear today? So we're bringing in now the ideal client, right? What do you feel like they need to hear today? And then the fourth one is, what do I need to hear today? So we bring you back into it. And this reflects those 3 rules of impactful messaging that we talked about at the beginning, which is, it's true to you, it's true to your ideal client, and it's value-based. Okay. So keep that in mind when you're doing this exercise. Okay. let's move on here because I am probably already running late. I've got quite a bit left. So, all right, social media energy audit. Let's get consistent. This is the next section. We've talked about messaging. So our next step here is to figure out what platforms are we going to be using? What kind of strategy are we going to be approaching these platforms with? And this is a little energy audit that is going to help you figure out what to include in your marketing strategy. The secret, it's not even a secret. Sorry, I hate that expression. The secret to this, secret to that. So funny. There's no secrets. The key to getting consistent on social media is to be sure to have a marketing strategy that is sustainable, and a strategy that you can actually create the time to implement, right? So it's about being really smart about building our strategies in that way, because we don't want to feel overwhelmed. That's when we aren't consistent with it, right? There are a couple other barriers to consistency, like perfectionism, imposter syndrome. I see those a lot, but there's also burnout, right? If we're not maintaining our energy levels, then we're not able to remain consistent on social media. So let's build a strategy that works. And this is what this energy audit is going to help you do. So I believe that it's six steps for this social media energy audit that I want you all to do, likely outside of this call. But step one is basically, I want you to write a list of where you are investing your energy right now. So we're taking kind of an assessment, an audit of what we're doing in the present moment in our marketing strategies. So write a list of platforms that you're currently using to market yourself, right? Write out those platforms. Let's get it on paper so we can get a visual of it. After you do that, I want you to figure out, how many hours are you actually spending creating content for each of these platforms? Because content takes time to create. So let's figure out a strategy that fits into your schedule. And then finally, how are you feeling when you're approaching creating or posting content? Are you like dragging your feet? Is it something that you procrastinate, or is it something that you're feeling really excited about, inspired about? If you're feeling inspired, that's probably an indicator that you are on the right track with your social media strategy. If you're dragging your feet a little bit, there might be a couple of tweaks that need to be made to figure out what is causing that. Right? So that's the first step, is we take a present moment audit of what we're doing, how many hours we're spending on it. The second step is to figure out what your posting schedule is. So how much time do you want to spend creating content, right? How much time do you want to spend creating content? How much time do you realistically have to create content in your day-to-day schedule? I also want you to assess what features are currently working for you. So what features do you really like? Reels, posts, stories, videos, what are the specific types of content that you enjoy creating for? And also, what features and what platforms are actually driving traffic, right? What platforms are working for you? Where are you seeing results? If you're worried that you're giving too much, I do recommend you cut back on your posting schedule and maybe shift your posts focus. So I don't know if anybody has seen that you have to post every day on social media, but you don't. This is a big industry myth. You do not need to be posting every single day. You need to figure out a posting schedule that works for you, whether that's 3 times a week, 4 times a week, and maybe it's about shifting your focus. So maybe you've been focusing on these blog posts that are not getting very much traffic. And so you need to focus, instead of creating content for blogs, that you need to shift it to creating content for social media and adding 1 extra post a week than you were doing before, depending on what your goal is, right? Finally, it's important to look at your posts not only as a way to reach new people, but as a way to nurture your audience. So this is something that we often overlook because we're always in search of that shiny object, right? We're always in search of that follower count. It's like we need the new people to come in the door. We need the new people to come in the door. But you probably have, depending on your following, hundreds, thousands, whatever, those people have already clicked that follow button. Those people are already consuming your content. They're already excited to be there. And so you need to remember that your posts are not only for bringing in new people, right? And bringing in that reach, but also to nurture your current audience, because often we forget that we get all caught up in the numbers and we get disappointed when we don't see new followers coming in the door. We don't see that reach getting higher and higher. However, if you are still reaching your current audience, you never know who in there might be your next customer or client, right? So just don't forget that. We need to keep both of those things in mind when we're building on social media. Okay, step 3 of the social media energy audit is to ask yourself where you want to be investing your energy. So we assessed where we are currently investing our energy. Where do we actually want to be investing our energy? So what platforms do you enjoy using? What platforms do you dislike using? You know, be honest with yourself. If you feel like you have to be on a platform because there are certain platforms for certain industries that, you know, are recommended, then take a look at the parts of it that you do like and maybe try to do some of those more, right? Like if you're on Instagram and you love doing stories, then maybe just like up your story content and do a little bit more of that. Try to kind of infuse a little bit more fun into your social media strategy, and you're much more likely to keep it consistent, right? Finally, ask yourself which strategies and platforms are serving you, right? If you are seeing that your posts, your reels on social media are bringing in traffic and followers, then that is something that you're going to want to keep doing. If you find that you're on LinkedIn and you're getting a lot of referrals through LinkedIn, then that's something that you're going to want to keep doing. So you want to weigh the pros and cons of, you know, being on a platform you don't like so much with maybe, you know, that platform might be bringing in some ideal clients for you. So keep in mind, but often we're on platforms that aren't necessarily bringing in customers for us just because we feel like we have to be on them. And so take some time to assess that. There are so many different reasons that you may or may not be getting clients on certain platforms. So it takes a little bit of assessment. Take the time to do it. It also takes time to warm up an audience on social media. So if you're new to social media, you just started posting, you're expecting clients to come in the door. That's not necessarily going to happen all the time, right? So keep in mind that there is a phase of warming up your audience. That's when you're building, that's when you're priming everybody, right? And so that takes time. And that's the biggest misconception I see when clients come to me, right? They're like, well, I did this launch and I didn't end up selling anything. But then I ask them, you know, did you launch to a cold audience? How long have you been building up your audience, right? And if it's been 2 months, they're launching to a cold audience. That's not very long to be on social media. It takes time to build it up. Okay, the 4th step of the energy audit is asking yourself, where can you repurpose your content? So this is the biggest one. This is the biggest strategy for saving your energy, right? Because we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we create new content. We can use old content on different platforms. So where can we repurpose our content? Can you post your reels to TikTok if you want to be present on both platforms? That is something that you can do. You know, do you do weekly lives? Can you do them on Facebook at the same time as you do them on Instagram? I've done that before. I set up 2 devices. I've got my phone and my laptop, and, you know, I just acknowledge that I'm on both and people are fine with it, right? So you can set up 2 devices to go live on 2 platforms at the same time. You know, posting your Instagram live to IGTV after you've gone live. Now you have an IGTV as well that stays on your page. Lastly, talking about your posts and your stories. Often when you create a reel or a caption or a post and you put it on Instagram or Facebook, you know, you also want to be showing up on your stories on Instagram. A great way to do that is just go and talk about the post you just created in your story, right? So now you're showing up on video, you're turning your subject and your topic into a video, but you've already written the post. So literally you create the post, then you go and talk about it in your story. You go into your story and you say, hey, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the post I just did on my feed, right? So there's a lot of ways you can repurpose your content. You can take your posts and turn them into emails, into blogs. You can take a blog post and break it down into multiple posts for social media. There are so many ways to reuse topics and break them up to make them just a little bit different, right? Okay, the last step in our social media energy audit is really getting specific on your content creation process. So what does your content creation process look like? When you sit down to create content each week or each month, what are you doing? So are you batching content? Are you sitting down once a week to batch content for the whole week, once a month to batch content for the whole month? Or are you more of a spur of the moment kind of person, right? When the inspiration strikes, you are posting. You need to figure out what your strategy looks like and what works for you. So what does your content creation process look like? Do you have a CEO day? So I know a lot of people, Mondays are their CEO days, or they'll take a couple of hours on a Monday, and that's when they work in their businesses. So they're taking time to batch content, maybe do their finances, some other things that they need to get done in their businesses. Do you have a CEO day? And are you scheduling your posts? So that is something else that can save you time and be a part of your content creation process, using a scheduler that will help you get consistent. Schedulers that I love for free are Hootsuite, like Hoot Suite, Hootsuite, and Buffer, Buffer. So I love those two. They're free up to 3 channels, and you're able to schedule out your posts. Unfortunately, there are no platforms on which you can schedule reels at the moment, so that is a bit of a drag, or stories, but this will at least get your posts scheduled so that you can go off and do other things. You can schedule out emails, blog posts, things like that through other platforms as well. So are you scheduling these things in? So take a look at what your content creation process looks like. What do you do when you sit down to write? Are you brainstorming? Like, what does that look like? Okay. Now that we have touched on our energy audit, our impactful messaging, we're going to go into lead generation. So lead generation is essentially finding potential targets that might be considering purchasing your product. And so how do we do that? How do we figure out who might be potential leads in a way that feels really good? And there are a couple of strategies that I absolutely love, but this is something that people struggle with a lot, because oftentimes, especially when it comes to feeling really soulful about our strategy and good about our strategy. Sorry, I just opened up the chat. I realized I have a question here. Does Buffer and Hootsuite schedule posts for Instagram? Yes, they do. So they can schedule out for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Okay, amazing. Sorry, just checking that I didn't miss anything in the chat. Totally forgot about it until now. Okay, so lead generation can feel kind of icky, right? It can feel kind of salesy for a lot of people. And so I want to show you how to do it in a way that feels a bit more soulful, feels a little more natural and good. And so all that takes really is a shift in perspective. So lead generation isn't about sales. I want you to start thinking about lead generation as relationship building. So I want you to approach each relationship that you are building on social media with an open heart. And the way to do that is to be open to what relationships can bring you, right? What these leads can bring you, because they might not be a future client. And so let's take that pressure off of like, oh, I'm talking to a client right now, a potential client right now, like I have to, be on my game. Let's take that pressure off. You never know what it can lead to. It could lead to a collaboration. It could lead to a referral. You could end up, meeting somebody in your industry that you're able to like consult with and talk to about the things that are going on in your business. You never know where these relationships can lead. So just be open to them. You never know that like that next follower might be your next big referral, right? So be open to that. Now, there are a couple of ways to identify leads that I want to share with you. These are some of my favorites. So the lead generation strategies that I love the most are stories. So Instagram stories are really great because the way Instagram works, and this is Facebook too, right? Because you can post the stories to Facebook as well, is that you can create all of this content on your page to build that like, know, and trust factor, and attract new followers as well as nurture. But stories are really where that nurturing happens. You're nurturing relationships in your stories because it's often the people that are more invested in what you have to say, are more invested in your content, your product, your service, that are going to be clicking on that story to watch, right? They want more content because you're going to see that your stories don't reach as many people as your posts do. And that's natural. And that's good because you have a more specific target in your stories. So every once in a while, pay attention to who's watching your stories. Go take a look at that list of people who have watched your stories, because there are going to be some potential clients in that list, and keep an eye on them because you can start engaging with them, right? So keep that in mind. Stories are really great. You can also create little engagement tactics within your stories by using polls. So you can post a poll, just a general example, you can be like, are you a coffee or a tea person, whatever. The people who are engaging with you, they're quite invested in your content. So keep that in mind. You can put questions as well that people can answer. So there's a lot of ways and little strategies to generate leads in your stories. Freebies. I love freebies. So if you're a service provider, using a freebie like a 30-minute training or some type of worksheet to add to your email list. So basically when people sign up for your email list, they get this freebie. So it serves the purpose of helping you identify leads while also serving the purpose of building your email list. Product-based businesses often do freebies like little samples, things like that. So there's a lot of options depending on what your business is, or like a little sales coupon or something like that, whatever it is for you. Sign up to get 10% off, right? Sign up for our email list to get 10% off your next purchase or whatever. So they get a coupon code or something. This literally tells you who is interested in your product because they're signing up to get a free little something so that they're able to consume your product eventually, right? Same with service-based providers. You want to put a freebie out that has to do with your offer. So if you're a confidence coach and you have a confidence worksheet, use that, right, as your freebie. It's just a little something. Giveaways are somewhat similar, but they're happening pretty much only on social media. I mean, you can promote them through your email, so you can promote them to your email list. But essentially, giveaways are great, again, to identify who is interested, who actually wants my product or service, right? Because those are the people who are going to be entering the giveaway. It's the people who have an interest in your product or service, the thing you're offering. So again, you can do a product-based giveaway for service providers. You can do like a free 30-minute call consultation or something to do with what you have out there. So we love a giveaway, and pay attention to who's entering. Look at their names, put them on your lead generation list. Start a list of people, right, that you want to go back to and start engaging with. Coffee chats, so getting on calls one-on-one with people, networking. This is the online version of networking nowadays, right? It's coffee chats. So get to know people in groups like this. Like Pero has so many people that you can start engaging with, that you can do coffee chats with, right? And so take advantage of organizations like this and events and things like that to ask people, hey, I'd love to get to know you more. Do you want to hop on a coffee chat? We can talk about our businesses, or we can talk about what's going on, whatever. Engagement. So doing engagement on social media, like I spoke about, pay attention to the people who are, watching your stories, signing up for your email list, entering your giveaway, because these are people you're going to want to start building relationships with through engagement. So when I speak about engagement on social media, what I'm referring to is starting conversations. So, going to see if they have a story posted, and if they have something that you really like that you can authentically reply to, right? Let's say they're posting a photo of their dog and you love dogs. I don't know. That's like easy. For me, that's easy. I'm like, great. Like, what's this dog's name? Like, tell me everything, So when you send a reply to their story, let's say I'm asking what the dog's name is, I'm going to land in their DMs. And that helps me start a conversation, right? It doesn't have to continue into a conversation from there. It's something that you can go back to in a couple of weeks as well. So there's options for engagement. Engagement is also going to follow other accounts doing outreach through commenting on a post of theirs, liking posts, These people I recommend you put on your lead generation list, start a little list, because you want to go back and nurture those relationships as well, right? So make a list. Finally, doing live interviews, different types of collaborations. So, interviewing other experts, industry experts on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, doing that kind of a collaboration, right? So that you're crossing over audiences. You can also collaborate through giveaways, so cross-promotional giveaways where you are partnering with another business that maybe has similar values to you, might have an audience that would be willing to buy your product or service as well, and vice versa, right? They're getting that same perk. when you partner with them to do a giveaway. So there's a lot of different ways that you can collaborate with other business owners, other entrepreneurs, to help generate a couple of new leads, right? So these are all really great ways to generate leads. Finally, how the heck do we even do engagement? Engagement is not super quantifiable. And so that's why I want to give you two different strategies that I love to use to do my engagement, because it's an organic task. Like you're building relationships. It's like, how do you track networking, right? It's the same thing. How do you track building relationships? So it's a really hard thing to just check off of the task list. And that's why I've created kind of these two strategies that I've used both of them. I tend towards one of them more than the other, but I like them both. So I want to give you a couple of options here. So when you're implementing your engagement strategy, one of the options is to set a timer. So you can do timed engagement. And this prevents us from having to like count people, right? Like, oh, I've spoken to this many people or whatever. Like that can feel a little bit icky. It can feel a little bit fake. And so to keep things authentic, we want to allow space for those relationships and those conversations to happen where they need to happen. And so setting a timer and timing your engagement really helps you do this. So maybe you do 30 minutes of engagement 2 or 3 times a week, right? And so you spend 10 minutes on nurturing relationships that you've already started building. So going back to those DMs, seeing if they posted a story, maybe there's something else you can reply to, spending another 10 minutes scrolling through your stories, and then spending another 10 minutes on finding new people and seeing if there are new accounts that might fit into your ideal client description, right? So that's the timed method. And then the other method that I like to use to track engagement is touch points. So this is the one that I use now, but essentially you want to set a goal of number of touch points each week. So a touch point can be a DM, a comment, a story reply, whatever piece of engagement or action you're doing. The reason I like to do touch points is because you may have done a bunch of new outreach the day before and you're coming back and your DMs are full, right? So each of those DM answers is going to be a touch point. So this is just a great way to quantify these things. I typically do about 20 to 40 touch points a week. So I would recommend that as well. But pick a number of touch points, set a goal that is realistic for you, right? So just like test it out to begin with. The more you do it, the more used to it you will get. But engagement is a really important part of your social media strategy because those relationships are key. And so I highly recommend making this a part of your weekly strategy, right? A part of your weekly task list. So that is it on soulful lead generation. I want to give you guys just a couple of prompts that I love to use for overcoming some mindset blocks when it comes to being on social media. Like I touched on before, some of the main obstacles to being consistent on social media, they can be mindset based. And so I want to give you a couple of tools to use to be able to overcome that. So if we're looking at imposter syndrome, if imposter syndrome is something that you struggle with most when you're on social media, then I have 2 prompts that will really help you here. Imposter syndrome is like when you're scrolling on social media and you don't feel like you belong, you don't feel like you're enough, right, to be in this space. You don't feel like a real entrepreneur, or you don't feel like a real business owner. You're not running a real business, right? I've heard clients say that to me many times. So it's a great example. And 2 prompts that I love to use for imposter syndrome are: 1, what assumptions are you making about the situation? Because often we assume, that other people are doing better than us, or they're more of an expert than we are. So what assumptions are you making about the situation? Second one is writing out 20 benefits of not coming off as an expert. What are 20 benefits of not putting yourself out there as an expert, or not coming off necessarily as an expert? Like, it sounds like you're still learning. It sounds like you're still, not totally on your game. What are the benefits of that? It's gonna be a tough list, but there are a lot of benefits there. One of them is relatability, right? Like, you're that much more relatable when you bring people on your journey with you. People love that. And it builds that like know and trust factor, right? So there's a lot of benefits not coming off as an expert. Perfectionism, if this is a block that you struggle with, you want to assess, what are 20 negatives of being perfect? And what are 20 benefits of making mistakes? Because there are a lot of benefits there. Again, these lists are hard to do, but I highly recommend you do a full 20. And then finally, if you really struggle with self-doubt when it comes to putting yourself out there, you know, you're doubting what you're putting out, you're doubting your expertise. It's important to take a look at, you know, what are you most afraid of? Like, what is the fear there? And then what is the worst case scenario? So what is the actual truth about the belief? And then finally, what are 20 things that make you valuable? Sorry, the phone's going off in here. All right, that is the presentation. I'm wondering, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? No? About ideal clients, how do you recommend finding out what activities or hobbies they would like? So again, I gave those 2 examples. So think about, you know, have you worked with someone that you really liked working with? Use them as an example. What were their hobbies? What were their activities that they loved to do? You know, what kind of activities and hobbies might help you, might align with your values of your business. So it really depends who you're targeting. You're going to have to think of an example of somebody, right? Like if you're targeting 20 somethings who are, again, really into the environment, you know, what might their hobbies include? Think about that. They might love hiking. They might love to be out in nature. They might be very adventurous, things like that. So hopefully that helps. Marge, what is IGTV? IGTV is basically anytime you post a lengthy video on social media. So it is typically any video that is longer than a minute that is not a reel is an IGTV. Yeah, so it's just a video. Does anybody have any other questions before we go? I do have to go like at 12. So any tips for being consistent with posting? Yeah, I mean, what would be your biggest issue? I'd love to know more. Carmen, if you want to unmute yourself and let me know, you know, what is your issue with being consistent? Like, what is the biggest thing you struggle with?
Thank you. Yeah, well, for me, it's, I don't know, maybe it's organization, but maybe 1 week I post 3 times a week, but next week only 2. The following week, 3 again, then nothing. So I don't know how to keep consistent with the same numbers of posting every week.
Are you batching your content? Like you're taking 1 day to create it, a couple hours each week to create your content?
No.
Okay. So I would recommend you try batching your content. So take a couple hours each week instead of doing it day by day, right? Oh, it's Monday, I have to post. Oh, it's Wednesday, I have to post. Sit down for, you know, an hour or 2 hours each week and create your content, whether it's Monday or Tuesday or whatever day of the week works for you best. Sit down and create your content for that whole week. Create your 2 posts for that week. Create your 3 posts for that week. So that might help.
Thank you. I will do that.
Yes, no problem. All right, does anybody have any other questions? No, are we good? Okay, amazing. All right.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. And Nick, thank you so much for this fabulous presentation. I know I have several other people that asked for the recording for this, so don't be surprised if you get several more requests for questions. Once again, if anyone would like a copy of today's recording, feel free to send me an email at communications@paro.ca, as well as if you would like a copy of today's PowerPoint. All right.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. And if everybody, if you have any follow-up questions that you want to ask me, you can reach me. I'm on Instagram at Annik Welsh Social, ANNIK Welsh Social. And then my email is annik.welsh@gmail.com. So feel free to, you know, shoot me an email if you need anything. All right. I just sent it in the chat there. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Kylie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming. Everybody have a great day.
Amazing. Thanks, everybody.